the Pursuit of the Pennant book that we talked with the writer a few days ago. Pat Gillick was number 2 today. We all know who number 1 is going to be when they announce it tomorrow. If it's not Brand Tricky, there should be an investigation. He will be the number 1 man. So Gillick, a Hall of Famer, number 2 all time as far as the top general managers are concerned in the history of baseball. So he's at 2. Ed Barrow is at 3. And it's going to be Ricky tomorrow. So in lieu of that, we thought here on the program today, on this cold day in February before spring training, that we would come up with the top 5 list as far as general managers are concerned in 2015, the existing ones. We're going to do a worst group because we want the guys on. So we just did a best group, and we did the top 5. And we put an order on it, so we wanted to make sure we go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And again, you got to have some qualifications. I mean, obviously, you'd love to have championships. I always think that's the most important thing. That's why I don't understand why in that Pursuit of the Pennant, Sabian is below Bean. He's got 3. Bean doesn't have a championship. But obviously there are sometimes some extenuating circumstances. The amount of revenue a team has to work with, which obviously could tie their hands behind the GM's back as far as making moves are concerned. You have to put that into the equation when you evaluate their performances and whether you want to put them on the pay grade. And then number 3, you have to look at it from I don't want to hear about, GM is not, it's an old term. Because a guy like Brian Sabian, he's the executive VP. Theo Epstein, he's not really quote-unquote the GM, but we all know he is running a franchise. They're not making a decision without going through him first. So we put him on our little list here today when we did a top 5. So away we go. We'll have Bruce comment here in a sec. Number 5, and I didn't want to put him in because I love to tweak him because he gets too much publicity. But number 5, we did put Billy Beane in of the Athletics. I have trouble getting any higher than that. He's 1-13 in closeout games where he can win a series. That includes the blowdown of the disaster against the Athletics here when he had that huge lead in the 8th inning at 7-3. So I'm not putting him any higher than number 5, but I'm not silly. He's made the postseason 1,000 times. He's got a good winning percentage. Doesn't have a lot of money to work with. Not a great ballpark. I think he likes it that way, where he can be the poster boy of the franchise, and obviously have Brad Pitt do him in movies and Moneyball and get all these great accolades. And so I think he likes the idea that he can maneuver and he can make a trade here and make trades there and change the roster, this, that, and the other. And I think sometimes to the detriment of the team. But I'm not silly. He's done a wonderful job of putting the team on the precipice of the postseason year after year after year. All right, they haven't done a good job in the postseason. Okay, they had a bad finish last year. But still, he's had lots of good moments, lots of great comebacks, regular season comebacks. He doesn't really believe in a great manager. He doesn't think the manager is that important in the big scheme of things. He's not going to overpay to get the big manager in there, although Bob Melvin's done a wonderful job. But he is not going to go out there and overpay to get the great manager in. But we're going to put him number 5 just for the regular season consistency in a bad ballpark with not a ton of money to work with. Tough division with the Angels. Texas has money, so we're going to put Billy Beane at number 5. I think that's fair. Number 4, almost as a reverse of Beane. We're not going to put him any higher than this, but I think you have to marvel at what Brian Cashman has done with the Yankees. And remember, with the Yankees being a general manager, part of that job is to navigate the bureaucracy that they have at the ball club. Everybody's got an opinion running the Yankees. I mean, whether it's the ownership, whether it's the vice president, whether it's the scouting director, half the franchise at times has been based in Tampa. The other half of the franchise has been based in the Bronx. That makes it tricky. They don't have that one central location. So anybody, and then of course for a long period of time, and Brian will be the first to tell you this, he had to deal with George, and George, we all know, if you lost an exhibition game in the Mets in March, he's going to yell and fire people. So that's just the way it is with George, and that was for the good and for the bad. And Cashman was a GM under that auspices with Steinbrenner. So I got to give him credit for that, having to handle that. No question about it. He's won plenty of championships. 98, he won a championship. Now listen, the team was ready-made for him. Michael and Buck, Bob Watson, Torrey, but still, he's the GM. He gets the credit. 98, they won. 99, they won. They beat the Mets in 2000. All those good years of consistency when they at least made the playoffs. Another championship in 2009. So, I mean, nobody is going to argue. Last 2 years, not so good, but nobody is going to argue with Cashman and the fact he's got plenty of money to work with. Unbelievable amount of revenue. We all understand that. So you could sit there and knock them for that because lots of other general managers who didn't make our top 5 don't have the resources to work with that Cashman does. But still, he's won championships. It's a tricky scenario. University has to running the Yankees. A lot of pressure on him running the Yankees. He's got to deal with the media that wants his attention 24/7. That's not that easy either. He's had to deal with a high, a Hall of Fame manager in Torrey for a long period of time too. So we are going to give Cashman the amount of success. He's won a championship since Joe left. He hired Girardi. I think that was his call. He at number 4. Number 3 is John Mozeliak, who's the general manager of the Cardinals. And this organization has been superb. He's made good moves. Drafted Molina when he was in the personnel department. Drafted, obviously, Pujols when he was in the personnel department. He's been with the Cardinals since '95. That counts, too. He's been a GM since 2007. They've been a model of consistency. They've won a World's Championship, albeit somewhat lucky with Nelson Cruz in right field. But nobody is going to argue with Mozeliak. They are the model. Maybe even more so than the Giants, because the Giants are not as consistent as the Cardinals are. They have been the model franchise, really in baseball for a long period of time. They are always in the mix. They very rarely have an off year. Letting Pujols go turned out to be the right decision because of the money that Pujols got. He's not going to be effective for the next 7 years of that contract. He's got an excellent farm system. He's made good trades. Even Peralta, the free agent signing, which a lot of people didn't like because of the PED use. He had a good first year. Nobody's going to argue with Mozeliak, number 3. The Cardinal organization is number 3, and since he runs it, he gets the nod. He is number 3. Number 2 is Theo Epstein. Now, listen, you can even put him number 1 if you wish, and I know he's not, quote-unquote, technically the GM of the Cubs and Jed Hoyer. I'm not trying to shortchange Jed, but listen, Epstein's running a franchise. It's his call. He's the ultimate guy who's responsible. He gets the blame and the credit if they win or lose. He won 2 championships with Boston. He gets all the credit for there. Now, listen, he's not great with free agents. Edwin Jackson, terrible. J.D. Drew, terrible. Matt Clement, terrible. He's not great with free agents, but as far as drafting, he's superb. He got Ortiz to go to the Red Sox. He's got a behemoth team now in the making with all those young players in Chicago. He has done a very, very good job. And if you go out there and win a championship in Chicago and break that streak, after you've won a championship in Boston, we should put him right behind Rickey, number 2 all time. I mean, that's where he's got a chance to try for, and he's still young. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I know he's not a quote-unquote GM, but how could you have a list of these people and not have him in your top 5? So we put Epstein at number 2. And number 1, again, you want to tell me this is sort of a biased scenario? I don't know how you don't sit there and give it to Brian Sabean in number 1. Now, it's funny about Sabean. We wouldn't have given it to Sabean prior to 2010. Always pretty good, but a bad stretch. They let Bonds go crazy through that clubhouse with his trainer, which he didn't like. They didn't win there for a long period of time after 2004. They were not a good baseball team. But, I mean, listen, he drafted Lincecum, he drafted Kane, he drafted Bumgarner. It's a good job by the scouting department. He kind of does it the old-fashioned way where they go on hunches. They go on the guys looking at players, on the field, the Dick Tidrows of the world. He doesn't go through the Moneyball concepts as much, so you like that. And now he's won the 3 titles. He always makes a big move in the middle of July to go out there and make a big move. Some work, some don't. Beltran didn't work. Traded Wheeler for him, but he's not afraid. And he's won the 3. He's been there a very, very long time. He's got a great department. Bobby Evans is excellent. We all know how good Tidrow is finding pitching. The Giants have had a lot of number 1 picks, a lot of high picks. A lot of them they've worked out. Posey, Kane, Bumgarner. You got to hit on your first-round picks. All right, you find a gem in the 7th round, great. You blow a 2nd round, fine, but you need to hit on the first-rounders. He's hit on his first-rounders. Some of the free agent signings you don't love. Huff wasn't phenomenal. They've been bad at second base with Sanchez, Scudero, but still, 3 championships speaks for itself. So to repeat, number 5 is Bean, hasn't won a championship yet. That's why we leave him at number 1 and 13 in closeout games to win a series. Number 4 is Cashman. We'd put him a little higher, but obviously he's got an amazing amount of resources, which gives him an advantage. Number 3 is Mozeliak. That is a organizational call more so than anything else, but he's been part of that organization for 20 years. He should be rewarded. Number 2 is, again, Theo. I don't know how you get away from Theo. The Cubs are on the precipice now, and he won 2 with the Red Sox. And Sabean's got 3 championships in the last 5 years.